Hello, everybody. I appreciate the ones that have joined already. Wonderful Michelle, lovely Lisette. Um, Thank y'all for joining. We're going to try to keep up with this chat as we go along. And I want to take a moment to thank Morgan Courtney for joining. She's a lovely person that I was fortunate to find out about through a friend of mine, just Tanya Kara. She had actually told me about it because she was doing a 75 Go Hard program, which we will be talking about. As always, if you're new to this channel, Evolving Always Productions is about helping people to evolve to a better you. It can be daily or what have you, but it's about evolving and becoming a better person. That's what this is about. We're on this journey together. You're not competing with anyone but yourself. One-upping yourself as much as possible. Hello, Margaret. How are you? Thanks for joining. So we're, without further ado, because time is money, I always say, we're going to go ahead and get started. This will actually be sent to a podcast, Evolving Always Production. So if you miss some of this YouTube, or if you're working out or driving and you want to listen to it later, you can listen to it on a podcast. It will be up there later on this week. So again, welcome, Morgan. Morgan also has her Instagram handle, but I will go ahead and say it. It's Morgan Courtney, but you're going to do MO period RGAN and then Courtney, COURTNEY. Definitely follow her on Instagram. She has a lot of great tips. She's a cook as well. Healthy eating. She does meal prep. And of course, she's a certified life coach. She has a master's in that, as well as she's a nutritionist. And then she also manages a team of engineers during the day. So she's a very busy person. She does a lot. So we're going to go ahead and start getting to the talk. So first thing I want to talk about, Morgan, so tell us about your 75. Well, tell us a little bit about the 75 Go Hard program and your experience with it.
So 75 Hard is a 75-day program that you have to do all 5 things that I'll list every single day without fail. So you can't skip anything for 75 days consistently to successfully complete the challenge. It's really around mental health and like mental strength and building self-discipline, self-strength. It's 2 45-minute workouts every single day. One of those workouts has to be outside, rain or shine. You have to follow a diet of your choosing, but once you choose that diet, you're sticking to it. You can't have sweets or any cheats whatsoever. No alcohol, a gallon of water, reading 10 pages of a nonfiction self-development book, and taking a progress picture. So those 5 things consistently. I heard about it through Andy Frisella's podcast, the MFCEO Project. And Andy Frisella is actually the founder of many companies, but he founded the program. And I thought about it for probably like 2 or 3 weeks. Like I knew I should do it. Everything he said was speaking to me. But one day after thinking about it, I just decided to do it. And it was June 3rd of 2019 last year that I started it. So yeah, that's pretty much it. My experience, I think the most beneficial part was just proving to myself that I could stick to things that were very difficult. It's really hard on the hard days not to have any crutches in food or alcohol or taking a break from the gym. So I built a lot of like self-discipline through that process. And I learned a lot from reading consistently every single day. So go ahead. I'm sorry. I was just going to say, when you read a self-development book, 10 pages, which is not that much, but when you read it just that little bit every single day, it's like a full immersion into that topic. So you're averaging a book a month, which isn't a crazy amount, but you are totally immersed in it's keeping it on the forefront of your mind. And you don't really have much more time unless you don't work to do more than that 10 pages. You're kind of scrambling to get them done, but that's what I liked about it the most, I think.
Well, I think that's probably one of the most powerful components. I agree with that, because reading little pieces at a time, you really take it in more than if
Yep.
you're like trying to sit there. And so I'm going to go through like 100 pages today. We will only get a certain amount of that content if we do it
Right.
that way. That's
Yep.
just a typical. So that's really good. So how was it going in that rain? Morgan, talk to us about that.
The rain and the heat, because it was middle of the summer in North Carolina, right?
Right.
In the heat of the summer. So it was probably the heat that was worse than anything. The bugs are out and all that. I had a couple rainy days, which are not fun. But I think I'd rather do it in the summer than the winter. So that is one good thing that I did.
Yeah, you did. I remember you doing it.
It was the heat's killer.
And see, I'm gonna have to do it the opposite if I were to do it like that, because for me, I can't, like when I was telling you about it, when I did like 120 Go Hard program for myself that I was just doing for myself, it was like in the fall and winter months. I am really bad on the heat, and that's something I need to work on. So maybe I should push myself to do that in the summertime, because it's really complicated for me.
I would just say have 2 pairs of tennis shoes so that when you soak one in the rain, you've got another pair for the next day until those dry.
Because you don't want to put sneakers in the dryer.
Right. Exactly.
So that's great advice. And obviously you did fine. You didn't get sick. You made it. You didn't cheat, which is awesome. I had one friend that was on a program, and they were like really far in, and then they cheated and they had to start all over. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Once you make it that far, for me personally, there's no way. That was also a really cool thing, is that once you eliminate the options, like you know what you're going to do and you know what you have to do every single day, you eliminate all of the thinking. Like you're not going out to eat. You're not going to think about all these things that you can eat. It's just everything's set. So you've got a lot more energy for other things.
And so how much weight did you lose during this time?
I went from 154 pounds to 129. So 25 pounds. More than I would like. I wouldn't want to stay at that lower weight. But I was on the diet. I had to stick to it. So
yeah. You were on a program, and it was all about, like you said, being disciplined, because a lot of this is about being disciplined too. And that's something a lot of people struggle with in so many areas. And, as an investor, I told you I invest in the stock market. That's one of those things too. You got to be really disciplined, or you can really have some issues. Let me see. 75 days is a lot, but she did it.
It is a lot.
Yeah, and she didn't mess up either, Cynthia, definitely. And she did it in the heat, because Cynthia is also in North Carolina, so Cynthia can relate to that. She did it in the heat of North Carolina, muggy, the worst. So she did a really great job there. So the other thing that stuck out to me, now you're doing, I know it's a little over 2,000 calories a day now. Is that correct? Correct me if I'm wrong on that.
It's about 2,300.
And that's just to kind of maintain what you want currently, right?
Right. Our bodies typically should not be in a deficit. And a calorie deficit is just when you're eating less than you're burning. But for a shorter period of time, 8 to 12 weeks, and then going back into eating at maintenance so that your metabolisms aren't shot in that process. Some people are perpetually in a calorie deficit, and that's not what you want.
Okay.
Just to properly nourish your body.
Yeah, because I like that you put that down, because I know for me, I have to have pretty much that intake. I know some people are like, I'm doing 1,200. I'm like, don't think I can function on 1,200.
No, you don't. Yeah, you don't want to be around me if I'm eating 1,200 calories a day.
Yeah. And then the other thing too is you really have y'all definitely please follow Morgan, because I'm going to tell you right now, she eats, and she eats well. And I mean that in a positive way. I mean, she's getting her protein in. She is a cook. She did a live earlier today where she was going into, and she does meal prep a great deal, which is definitely very important for her, because like I said, she's in corporate America as well. Hold on, I'll put this question up real quick.
So for my diet in 75 hard, I just counted macros. So really I had a calorie maximum that I could have every single day, which was about 1,800 calories. And then I had a specific amount of protein that I was targeting every day. So that's the diet. So there are with 75 hard, there's a lot of restrictions. So you can't have sweets. There's things that Andy will say are off limits. Andy's the creator of the program. But currently I'm counting macros as well, but I don't have anything that's off limits. So if it fits in there, I eat it if I want it.
Okay, so define what you're saying about off limits. I'm sorry.
So there's no
what
foods,
what you're doing now. I mean,
right. For my day-to-day diet, if I want ice cream or cereal or, things like that, less whole foods or sweeter foods, higher in sugar, I don't have anything that's necessarily off limits. Whereas in 75 hard, I did, because those are the rules of the program.
right, and that makes sense. Yeah, because if you get something off limits, then you have to start over again. So that makes total sense. Yeah, because I think you do talk about that sometimes, it's okay to, have a balance between, but you do discuss that as well. So that's actually really good. The other thing that stood out to me, because she also did an IGTV about her 75 Go Hard. So like I said, definitely make sure you're following her on Instagram. But one of the things that stuck out to me that I really loved when you were talking about the house, tell us a little bit about you getting your first house.
So I was on 75 hard, I believe, when I did it. So my partner and I, we moved to North Carolina and we rented this house for a year. And then we had the property management group asking us if we were interested in buying it, and they were putting the price higher than what we thought it should be. So instead, I did some digging. Actually, my mom was the one that ended up finding. I was like, I can't find this woman. Found the owner of the house and invited her over and just had a conversation around the things that needed to be fixed in the house, what we thought the house was worth, all of that. And ended up I threw out a number. She was 5,000 higher than that. And we met in the middle, and we ended up getting the house for about 30,000 less than what it appraised at. And about 20,000 less than what the property what they were posted or going to list it as. So absolutely. Huge savings just by having a conversation and having I did a bunch of research on what conversation points I should bring up when buying a house, and just had the difficult conversation. I think that's the biggest lesson there, is having difficult conversations do pay off. It's very uncomfortable.
They do, but I love it.
Yeah.
So I hope y'all was paying attention to this, because, well, some of y'all own homes, but some of y'all maybe be thinking about buying a house. She's giving a lot of great information, because it is important to know what's going on in your area, do the research, because what she has done is, and I think y'all are talking about moving again. I'm not sure. You don't have to really necessarily answer that, but she has already built equity in her home, and hasn't had that home that long. We're talking probably, not even a year, actually, correct?
I've had it just almost a year, or no, a little over a year.
Okay, so a little bit over a year, but she already has a great deal of equity built in this house already, just for her negotiating.
Yep.
I think that's awesome. And it's because she was in the right mindset. She did this program. It helped her self-confidence, because it's all about, mental too, right? Mental and physical. They both go together. They really do. And look what happens. Already got built up equity in her home. So if they do decide to move again, she's good, because they already have this built up equity, and then they've been paying for it for years, so it's even more. So I love that aspect. I love that story. Actually, I was like, wow.
Yeah, and the savings, and just from when we do get disciplined, like us specifically, my partner and I, when we get more disciplined in our behaviors, we are the same way with our money, and we saved so hard that year. And to put a really hefty down payment on the house as well. So there's a lot of I think we made all of the right decisions as far as buying a house goes.
Yeah, so you definitely did. So not only did you get the house 30,000 less than what it was the market value, you had a big down payment. We're not going to ask what that was. That's none of our business. But my point is, like I said, a lot of equity.
Yep.
So that's what you want. You want to have that equity, because if you do decide you want to move, then y'all are doing good for the next location that you're going to. So that's great. So you jumped from an airplane, did a little skydiving.
Oh, so yeah, that was planned, but it was pretty intense. There's really nothing like, we were in the plane, both my partner and I both, his name is Trevor. I'll just call him Trevor from here out. But we were both attached to another jumper, and Trevor went out first. And like the last thing I saw of him was just his head down and his feet in the air. So I went up to the door, and my guy and I just literally just step outside of the plane. And you are dropping at 126 miles per hour. And then they very quickly pull the parachute, and there's just like an abrupt lift where you're like all of a sudden just like floating in the air. And we were in South Carolina, but we could actually see Charlotte, North Carolina from where we were. So you can see very far, 2 to 3 hours in a car distance from where you are in the sky. So it was pretty cool. I had a perfect landing when we got down to the ground. It was pretty intense.
So let me ask you something.
Yeah.
If you hadn't have done the 75 go hard, do you think you would have had the courage to do that?
I think so. I think it makes it a lot easier because since I started doing 75 hard, I've started putting myself in situations that make me uncomfortable. Okay. So I almost seek that out.
Right.
So I think it was an easier choice to do the skydiving. It's something that I've always wanted to do. I just never really saw myself actually doing it or actually going through the steps to do it. But yeah, it was kind of a dare between Trevor and I too.
Okay, so basically, you had it on your list of things that you wanted to do eventually. It's basically, okay, that makes sense. Well, that's good, and you did it. Sounds like you didn't struggle to do it either. They didn't have to like, hey girl, you gonna get off this plane or what?
No.
So who was the first again? Was it Trevor or you that jumped first?
Trevor jumped first. I wanted to jump first, but they didn't hear that, so he jumped first.
Oh.
Yeah, which was fine. It's just a little unnerving when you see somebody you love fall out of a plane.
And Lisette, I did not know that about you, but you are phenomenal. Lisette, I don't know if you know her. Definitely follow her. She's Posh is My Purpose. She's a phenomenal woman. Didn't know that, Lisette. We'll have to talk later. So, and she's got a video on it somewhere. But so that's great. I love that. And then you even got a great picture of it, which you posted on your Instagram. And I actually love that whole caption. So, I talked about this last week with the guest that we had last week, and definitely read people's caption, because I think sometimes we get we're trying to be fast. Oh yeah, this is a cool picture you like and go on. But her actual caption of that, I just loved everything that she was talking about. It was almost like, to me, I was feeling like I was in a spoken word thing, except it wasn't that. Some of the things, the way she was really laying it out, and she does journaling. And how long have you been journaling, by the way?
I've been journaling for probably 1.5 years now, consistently.
Okay. So 1.5 years consistently. And you feel like it's definitely enriched your life and your mental outlook?
Yes. It's a cognitive deload for me more than anything. Just allowing me to get things out so that I can function clearly.
Okay. Well, that's good. I like that thought process, because I know you definitely said that. But yeah, when I read it, I was thinking that I love a lot of things that you were saying. There's a lot of things that everybody feels that you were saying. So yeah, y'all go and check that. You'll see the caption. You'll see her jumping out and read that caption. I loved a lot of things that she said in that. So definitely check that out. One of the things I wanted to ask you, you mentioned something about sabotage. You had something about that. Talk to us about your thought process on that.
So self-sabotage is really when we're doing something out of alignment with what our end goal is. So I actually do have a visual on my social media that I created to kind of explain it. But if you think about it, you have some belief about yourself, and then you will act in accordance to that, or according to that. And then you will get some kind of result, positive or negative. And that result will again influence the belief or what you think of yourself, right? So our self-sabotage, I think we all do this on some level. We self-sabotage, like just because we're on the topic of exercising, saying, oh, skipping this one exercise won't count or won't matter. Or we procrastinate, the self-sabotage, or we will expect perfection from ourselves, which ultimately will lead us to self-sabotaging. Anything that's really like pulling us away from or distracting us, taking us off course from whatever it is that we're trying to do, like a goal. So yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a total sense because we do it all the time. Whether it's like, there's so many examples. My goodness, we're trying to do a project and we decide to get on social media, and 1 minute turns into 20, 30 minutes, and that's 20 minutes that you could have been productive. So but there's so many ways we do self-sabotage for sure. So I'm thinking Cynthia's asking, I guess, clarification. So real quick, Cynthia, it's 45 minutes twice a day. One of the 45 minutes has to be outside. It doesn't matter if it's rain, snow, what have you. It has to be outside. 10 pages of a nonfiction material, and typically a motivational book is probably the best thing. And then you are going to you could pick your own diet, but he is strict about, I guess, sugars and things of that nature. Is that pretty much correct? A good recap on that? Okay.
Yep.
All right, let me put that back up there. See if we miss any other question. Yeah, social media is time consuming. And for me, for 2021, I'm trying to think about how I can better fit that in my schedule of all the other things that I'm trying to do, because it is a part of my business as well. And subconscious, that is true. I agree with that, Lisette. Yes, definitely. All of those things y'all bring up is great points for sure. So let's talk about some things. You brought up one point that I liked when you were saying feelings are not fact. And I love that statement because it definitely is true. It really will make things happen in our mind that are like so not true. But if you run through that, how your thought process on that.
So I don't remember what I was saying it in respect to, but if you think about where a feeling comes from, it comes from a meaning or something, an interpretation, a meaning that we attach to something that happens. So if my partner leaves the dishes in the sink versus washing them, I will attach some meaning to that, which is usually you don't care or you're being inconsiderate or something. And then I'll have a reaction where I'm angry or frustrated or sad. So that feeling isn't a fact. It's not a direct reflection of what his intentions were. It's the meaning that I attached to it. So I think that's a
great example. Just like another example that everybody can relate to. Let's say that you are in a relationship and maybe your significant other is usually home at X amount of time. Like, that they go to work, they get off work at 5 and they're normally home by 6. I'm just using this as an example. For some odd reason, you can't get up with them. They're not home by 6. You're trying to call them. You can't, get up with them. And you'll start running all these thoughts in your head, oh, they were in an accident. And then it starts becoming really real, or they're seeing somebody and all of these things. And you get all worked up over something that there's no facts behind it, none at all.
Yeah.
It's like simple solutions to why it could have happened. There's just a lot of things, and I totally agree with that. We do that all the time, and social media has kind of almost made it like a thing too, where we'll like lies because we'll see that somebody's doing this. We're like, oh gosh, I didn't do this. So because I didn't do this, this is going to happen. And we start going down a rabbit hole of negative thoughts and creating things that's just not even true, and getting into our feelings. We'll even start getting depressed about it, which is really, crazy. These are things that we do. So I when I saw that, I was like, yeah, definitely. And like you said, there was another part that you mentioned. You said our moods create our thoughts, which is so true. Our moods. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's a cycle. So if we have if we're in some mood and we can't get out of it, generally we need to look at what thoughts we're thinking that are creating that mood, right? So, because a mood will pass,
Right.
they're temporary, but if we're staying in it and we're stuck in it, it generally has something to do with the thoughts that we're telling ourselves, or the stories that we're telling ourselves.
Yeah, and I agree with you. That's so true. Another thing that you said that I loved, you said that 75 hard was such a great program that you would have paid 10,000 for that. So I just wanted to leave that out there for you guys. That's what she mentioned about it. She would have paid 10,000 for it because it just did so much for her. So I love that comment. That really stuck in my head because we're putting a price tag and then you're like 10,000. That's huge. That's huge. Because you said you definitely built your self confidence up from it as well, correct?
Yes. Self-confidence is really for me and for a lot of other people, just learning to trust ourselves and trust that we're going to do what we say we're going to do. So when you're faced with something difficult, like 75 hard, and you actually day in and day out prove to yourself that you'll stick with it, you build a lot of confidence and self-trust. If anybody's interested in that program, I would highly recommend listening to his podcast episode because he goes through all of it in detail, very, very clearly.
Yeah, definitely. Spell his name for me. You said Andy, right?
Andy, and the Frisella is Frisella. He's on Instagram. The podcast is...
That's correct, right? Well, I don't know if you can see that or not. Can you see it now? Let me see if I did that correct.
Yes, that's right.
All right, so that's the podcast that she's talking about. So you can really get into that.
Yep.
And what were you going to say? You said something about Instagram. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say his podcast, I think it's called Real AF is the name of the podcast.
It is.
Yeah, the new one.
It is. As soon as you said it, I'm like, that's exactly what it's called. That's the name of the podcast. Easy to remember, by the way. So good. Thanks for sharing that. Now, the reason I actually had invited Morgan on this program, because obviously for December, I'm working on just helping us to really take off 2021 just rolling. I mean, I want us to have the foundation and we're rolling in 2021. So I was listening to her stories one day and she was talking about positive self-talk. And it was a really great segment. It was so great that I actually videotaped it because I said I'm going to try to share it, but a lot of complications trying to get it from my phone here to actually share it for y'all to hear it. So it's unfortunate there, but it was incredible. I loved everything that she was saying. And I said, I am going to have to ask her on YouTube. I've got to. So now that I've said that, talk to us a little bit about what you were talking about. If you remember that segment, you were talking about positive self-talk.
So I think I remember the majority of it. I have a client, so I do have a nutrition and mindset coaching program. And one of my clients, I challenged her at the beginning of a week to just, how are you going to show up better for yourself this week than you have been? She was doing great. So this wasn't, a correction. This was just a turning up like the energy that she currently had. And she came back and she said, my initial thoughts were, how I was going to tell you how I was going to execute on all of my goals and I was going to get everything done, and which all about just executing. And she goes, and then I thought about it and I feel like the best thing that I could do for myself is just to be compassionate towards myself, and to be paying attention to my self-talk, and to be being as positive and as much of my own cheerleader as I could possibly be. And I personally felt like that was a brilliant thing, because we've been talking about self-talk and the impacts of self-talk. And that's honestly going to lead to nothing but execution, and accepting yourself when you aren't perfect, but being her cheerleader for herself, not only strengthening her relationship with herself, but also executing on her goals. So I think that's what I said.
That is actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I said, that
Yeah.
really, for some reason, I just really loved it. And we'll talk a little bit more about it, but you have a question there.
So I have been a life coach for almost a year. I have been taking clients for since I've started. I've been a master life coach since sometime middle of this year. That was during Corona. And I have had clients within this program for the past 9 weeks. So that's all of my.
Yeah, because I tell you, and it's really good that you're doing it during this time too, because people really need it.
Yeah.
This has been a very difficult time for a lot of people, and especially the self-talk, because you got to think about it. You know, you've got more people that are staying at home. So who are they talking to anyway but themselves? Let's face it, you know, because, you know, like when you're like, because I remember when being in corporate America, you know, you're talking to other people, you're out there, you're on the go, or just when you're out, you're talking to people, you're having conversations. It's not in your head space, but now more than ever with people being at home. And then if you're self-employed, as most of the ladies up here are entrepreneurs, so you're like home, you're in your head all the time. So if you're in that head and you're talking, make sure that you're talking positively to yourself.
Right.
I think that's very profound, and I love that. So the other thing that I thought was interesting, you said, and I want to say this is your first book, but correct me, it may not have been your first book. Was your first book The Jealousy Cure that you read?
That was my first full book, yes.
Okay. So talk to me a little bit about that book and why you selected it.
And if anybody does any type of, personal development reading, if that's anybody's resolution or does 75 hard, I would highly recommend finding books that are specific to the things that you're dealing with. The first book that The Jealousy Cure was the first book that I read. I have not issues, but I would say I have room for improvement with respect to jealousy just in my life, whether it's in relationships or in romantic relationships or with just comparison to other people. And that book just slows you down and explains how we all are jealous, and we all have a natural tendency to be jealous. That's a survival mechanism. Competition is a survival, right, instinct. And it normalized it for me, normalized the jealousy. And he gave a lot of tips on how to deal with it and it was all really putting it into perspective and using, I think it would be considered cognitive behavioral therapy to overcome it. So what I did was just practice certain things that he told or taught, and I found it very effective. I found a handful of things very effective.
So is this title that I typed, is that correct?
Yes.
Basically? Okay. That resonated with me because I think a lot of people are dealing with that now, especially with social media now. I think that probably wasn't as much as an issue. I mean, granted, jealousy is one of those things that's going to go for the end of time for different reasons. I wrote it in there, Katia. Let me see if you got it. But anyway, it's Jealousy Cure. But I think in this time period, it's very relevant because, you know, we're dealing with this all the time. We you know, it's not like it used to be back in the day. You're keeping up with the Joneses, you're keeping up with the neighbors. You see them getting a new car, they're doing stuff to their homes. Now it's like as soon as you turn on your phone, you're seeing this, you're seeing that, oh, this person, they look like this, they've got this going on. And it's hard to not sometimes, I guess, be jealous. So
Yeah.
I really saw that book. I was like, that's a great book. So I definitely wanted to talk about that.
And it was
And
an easy read.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say it's an easy read, and it's really just teaching you that it's normal to be jealous and you don't have to rid yourself of that jealousy. It's just about making room for it and still handling your emotions and being aware of your emotions and acting effectively or thoughtfully. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Which is honestly, I haven't read, it's over a year ago that I read that book, but that's a lot of what I practice, is not ridding yourself of the negative, quote unquote, emotions that you may have, but learning to effectively deal with them and make room for them.
And I like that you said that, because you actually did IGTV 2, I think, sessions about dealing with feelings. And I'm probably not giving the correct title, but talk to us a little bit about that.
I think I did it on emotional resilience. So,
right.
and really just being aware of our emotions. I think us as a society, we aren't really that clear on what we're feeling. Generally, when we're upset, we have some underlying need that isn't being met. And it's emotional resilience is really built upon being aware of what your emotion is, figuring out what that unmet need is and working on that, and communicating effectively, especially when working with a partner or somebody that you're in a relationship with at work, whatever it is. If you can communicate your emotions and how the situation is having you feel, and hear other people's emotions and their underlying needs, it just leads to conflict resolution a lot quicker within yourself and with others.
Right. Give me an example, because I know you said you did that in because Morgan is also a manager. She leads a team of like 20 plus men in engineering, but I think you said something about that it worked really well, and what you were doing. Can you give an example of that?
So I had two men that have been working together for 19 years. And they've, over the past 7 years, just been fizzling apart. They were super close. And then they've just had some beef over the years. I don't know exactly what it was because I wasn't working with them when it happened. And they both come to me individually, usually, to talk about the other person and what they're dealing with. And so I've asked them over the past couple of weeks, are you open to having a conversation with each other? And they say yes. But then it's more of, well, they're going in with trying to prove the other person wrong. That's the way they sound like they're going into the conversation. So before I wanted to have that conversation, I wanted to obviously change the energy going in, because I don't want them to be arguing or, there for the wrong reasons. Right. So one of the guys at work, he was pretty upset, and just telling me all about what this other person was doing and just how wrong this other guy was. And I eventually just started asking him questions that led to how he was actually feeling. And it took him a while to get there. It's usually what we'll often do is mistake a feeling for what is actually somebody else just what they're doing, I guess. So an example would be, I feel betrayed. Like you feel like that person is betraying you, but that's not an actual feeling. There's an underlying feeling behind that. So you feel sad, you feel hurt, disappointed, whatever that is. So we got to those root feelings for him. And I think once it was like almost like a visual light bulb. I could see that he was like, oh, I am like actually hurt by this. Once we got to that vulnerable spot, we went into that conversation and his tone was completely different than it had been in the past. He still said and was direct with everything that he was upset about, but he articulated, I just want to go back to the way we used to be. And I think that it got to like a vulnerable spot, I guess, once he realized and was in touch with the fact that his feelings were just hurt, versus it being an argument.
Yeah. So, Queen was saying, and we sell on social media, when I feel jealous, I try and turn it around for myself, and I choose to think I am inspired by that person, and I choose to support them and encourage them. And everybody, if you don't know the Grateful Queen, you need to be following her. She is a phenomenal, phenomenal woman. She also has a YouTube channel, The Grateful Queen. Phenomenal individual. That's great. I agree with that. What you were saying, Quimby. I do that too. I more so use it from like an inspiration, oh, if they do that, I can do that too. It kind of, so you can definitely turn it around. I totally agree with that. But I am interested in reading the book though, because I think it's great. There's things sometimes we don't even feel like that maybe we're having an issue with, but it's a great, thing to do. And the other thing you were talking about too is when you're reading a book and you're doing it, like you were saying, the 10 days, you said you've pretty much been getting through a book a month now, basically, because of that.
Yeah. Books, I find that they're like on average about 300 pages. So if you're reading 10 pages a day, you get through about a book a month. But I've read a bunch of, people are like, how have you learned so much? It's like, it's only 10 pages a day. It's really not much. Yeah.
And you're going to keep that information in, as opposed to like we were already talking about previously. If you're trying to do a lot at one time, the thing I like about it is there's people that don't get through a book in a year. Seriously. Yeah. So the fact that, you're working out, you're taking care of your body, you're getting in an optimal shape, but you're also doing the same with your mind.
Yes.
Yeah. Your spirit, I'll say even your spirit, your mental thought process, your spirit is just, and like I said, look what you did in regards to the house. I love that. And you may not have even had the nerve to do that had you not gotten involved with that program, right?
Yeah, I would definitely say that's true.
Yeah, so I love that, because all of that took, courage and research and self-confidence to really, go in an element that she didn't know a lot about, but she's like, hey, and a very positive outcome. So now you mentioned briefly, you were talking about that you do a 120-day program. Tell us a little bit more about that, and what are your plans in regards to 2021 in regards to that?
So I am using both disciplines as a life coach and as a nutritionist in my program, which is called the Resilient Mind and Body Method. It is geared towards women, but I help them overcome their nutrition struggles. So that looks like creating healthier habits, understanding their nutritional needs, their movement needs, all the, sleep, hydration, food, exercise, all of that. We master their habits related to their health. Our bodies are like how we get through life, right? So taking care of our bodies is fundamental. And once you master that, I think it just gives you so much more energy to show up bigger and better in other areas of your life. So that's one focus of our program. The other focus at the same time for the whole 120 days is building mental resilience. So, looking at our limiting beliefs, our self-sabotaging patterns, cultivating self-awareness with respect to our emotions, just how we're showing up, how we're talking to ourselves. We talk about self-discipline, of course, self-compassion, right? All of that, really. But really it's all about becoming a better person. I think that, how we take care of our bodies and then how we take care of our minds is fundamental for how we show up in every area of our life.
I totally agree with you, just from being a person that does work out and has been working out consistently for a while, because I know every time that I don't work out, and I'll give an example, when COVID first, I guess, reared her ugly head in the United States, I'll put it to you like that. We know COVID came, like I think initially in December for China, but when it reared its ugly head in the United States and stuff started shutting down, which one of them was the gym. And granted, you can work out from home. Like, as a matter of fact, I'm going to be working out from home today. I had a lot of stuff I was doing earlier, so I'm actually going to work out after I finish this talk with Morgan. But anyway, my point is, I kind of got slack, and that was my fault.
Mm-hmm.
No one's fault but mine. I would do a little workout here and there, but it was like I guess I was like in my head, "Ugh, I can only get a good workout at the gym,"
Mm-hmm.
and I definitely need to change that mindset, obviously. And then I got in a car accident, hurt my leg. It
Mm-hmm.
was hard to get around, and I lost a lot of the strength that I had prior because I do lift weights too when I work out. So it was really an ordeal, and I'm still working on getting that back up. But so I felt my self-confidence was at an all-time low.
Mm-hmm.
I was depressed more. I really was. I was
Yep.
depressed more because I wasn't active and I was depressed. So once I decided to get back into the game physically, then my mental outlook just started changing. So it's definitely true. And even if you don't do the 75 go hard, implementing that physical fitness into your life is so key. You're going to feel so much better.
Yep.
You can be so much on top of your game, and just being consistent with it. Definitely be consistent with it. I've made a decision just to work out every day. I'm probably going to make even some more changes in 2021, where I may go back to working out twice a day, because I did used to do that. I used to
Mm-hmm.
do that. I wasn't on any program, but like I know for at least 120 days, I was working out twice a day. I
Yeah.
work out like in the morning, and this was when I was in corporate America as well. I would work out in the morning, and then I would work out in the evening. And then I always ate pretty well. What I mean is I didn't wasn't a fast food person.
Yeah.
Like, I'm still not. So, but in any case, so just let you know, working out is definitely important. It does help with your mental attitude as well. And just stop making excuses for why not to do it. Because I know one of the things that people used to tell me, especially when I started doing the 120, they were like, well, I just don't have time. Because this was when I was in corporate America. So managers come to me, well, I just don't have time. I don't have time. I said, well, you know what? I don't schedule anymore. So that's
Mm-hmm.
one thing, guys. I don't schedule my workouts, because for me, one of the things that created an issue for me, I don't know if anybody else has a problem with this, is you would schedule it. You're like, okay, I'm going to work out at this particular time. Well, the problem is something may happen, because life happens. Wouldn't everybody agree? Life happens,
Mm-hmm.
things happen. So you may not do it at that time. So if you don't do it at that time, then you won't do it later either, because you're like, well, I work out at that time, so I'm not going to work out now. And then
Right.
that can happen over a period of time. So for me to keep on working out, I don't schedule anymore. What I started doing is I've got to work out today, no matter what time it's going to be, I will work out. That does work, guys. I ended up telling some people that. They would come back to me later and say, oh my God, you're so right. I said, I work out all the time now, just because you told me stop scheduling it. Just make sure no matter what that you do it before that day is over with. So I just thought I would share that with you, because that does work for me. I've done it. So thought I would share that.
I would definitely also say that even if you can't get the type of workout that you want in, just doing something is keeping up with that habit and reinforcing that you'll show up for yourself. So even if it's a 10-minute walk,
Right.
just do that so that you know you didn't skip a day, which will motivate you further the next day. And also start where you are. I wouldn't think that you have to work out. You might be at that point, but others may not, where if you're not working out at all now, start where you are and just implement a small change and build on it.
I totally agree. And
Mm-hmm.
and that's something that we are about, because you're right. If somebody hasn't been working out, then it may be too cumbersome for them
Mm-hmm.
to go the direction that I'm going. You're right, because I'm somebody that does work out.
Yep.
So you're right. Small changes, 10-minute walk, maybe one day, next
Mm-hmm.
day, just maybe for a week, do 10 minutes a day. Then
Yep.
the next week, challenge yourself to 15 minutes a day. These small changes do add up, especially if you're not doing them to begin with. So like
Mm-hmm.
she said, if you haven't been walking and you decide, okay, I'm going to walk 10 minutes a day, you'll be surprised how much your quality of life is just going to improve just from you doing that little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start adding to it, and start adding a little bit more. And Wendy's another great person. Definitely make sure you're following her as well, Salt Creek Style. She's a personal trainer for about 10 years, working out as a mindset and a commitment. She's definitely right. She's definitely a fit person. Definitely a disciplined person too, because she taught herself how to sew, which is always amazing to me. I love it.
Is that Salt Creek, Indiana?
You were asking. Oh, I'm sorry. Which? Oh, Salt Creek, and you're asking her where she's from.
Yeah. Oh, it's North Arkansas.
Yeah, Arkansas.
Okay.
That's exactly right.
Okay. There's a Salt Creek in Indiana where I used to live, so I was curious.
Yeah, that is true. I didn't even think about that. You're right until you mentioned that. So small changes are key. And like some people, for example, they drink sodas. And they stop drinking sodas and they're surprised at like the weight loss they get from that. It's small changes. So that's and the same thing for mental, like she was talking about reading a book 10 pages a day. It's not a lot.
No.
But imagine a huge impact, and she's read a book basically a month. I think that's phenomenal.
Yep.
And the knowledge that she actually gains. So talk to us a little bit about what your plans are for 2021 and how you want to like maybe help others, because I know you do have some aggressive goals.
So my plan for my program is to continue to develop. Right now, since I do have clients, I'm focused on delivering the best experience to my clients. In 2021, I'll launch multiple times. So I will be taking new clients every 3 months. But my plan is to just grow from a financial standpoint within my business and to continue my outreach or my I don't know, I guess that's the best word, my reach.
Right.
And that's business goals for 2021. I do eventually want to get out of corporate America. That would probably be 2022 timeframe. I also have a goal to run an ultra marathon. So that's what I'm planning for 2021 so far. I have, I've been talking about for the past couple of days, big goals. I want to do some really big and scary goals this coming year.
So for your ultra marathon, is that the one where it's 100 miles, or I might be talk me about which one you're talking about, because I know there's one for 100 miles.
That would not be it. So there's the shortest ultra is 50K, which is 31.1 miles.
Oh, okay.
So that would be the first race that I would do.
You can do it, girl. I see it. Yeah. So are you thinking about doing that for 21 or possibly
2021? Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah. I can see it. So basically you already been training for it, obviously.
Yeah. So it's about a 7 to 8 month, if you stretch it out, training plan. Just go easier on yourself physically.
So how many miles are you running a day? Or if not right now, how many miles do you plan to run to build yourself up to that?
So it is 3, 4, some weeks are 3 times a week and sometimes are 4. But you basically build up to 26 miles before race day. So it's just the plan starts at like the longest run being 3 miles per that week. And then it just builds on that consistently.
Okay.
So,
and she's such a sweet lady. Everybody too that hasn't, put your Instagram handle in the comments, because everybody should be following everybody. It's a great group of people. And like I said, all these ladies are actually self-employed. I have one of my this is like one of my best friends. She's in Florida, so she's a serial entrepreneur, but she's also still in corporate America as of right now. So but yeah, put y'all's Instagram handle down for those who don't have it. Make sure everybody is following each other. Well, you have some great goals. Please make sure you're following Morgan because, like I said, she really is inspiring. She's going to really get you in the spirit that you need to be in, because yes, mind and body will get you where you need to get to. It'll help you make all the right changes, all the right things that you need to do in life. You know what I mean?
Hey, Erica.
Yeah, that's excellent. So definitely do that. Any last words, last comments, Morgan? Anybody have any questions before we roll off of here?
The only comment I have is that if you do follow me and you have questions or want to chat or talk through something, I'm always open in the DMs. So you can just send me a private message.
Yeah, that's good. And she's very responsive because like I said, she didn't really know me. And but I met her, like I said, through a great friend, and I'm glad I did because she's a dynamo. I'm gonna call her that. She's doing great things. I love seeing people do great things. That's what we're about. And you know, Evolve and Always Projections, we're a team of people together. Everyone achieves more. We're in this universe together. What we put in is what we get back, and that's what we're about. Well, everyone that joined, what can I say? I am so glad that y'all did get an opportunity to actually meet Morgan. For a lot of you that probably haven't, and somebody says they've been stalking you, and it's my lovely Pamela said. She's my purpose. She's definitely she goes hard on her workout. But anyway, so thank you so much for coming out and talking with us. And remember, this will be added to my podcast. And again, thank you everyone for giving us some of your time. Everyone have a wonderful, wonderful night. And Merry Christmas to some people that I may not talk to.
Thank you. Thank you, Terry. Thank you.